Prime Minister Meles, you've also spoken and fought for a very long time on behalf of smallholder farmers and agriculture in Ethiopia. Could you share your ideas on how this effort going forward can both help improve productivity and incomes on small farms and bring larger scale investment to Ethiopia? And what does that mean for your overall growth strategy?
Well, as you know, Ethiopia has for a very long period been the poster child of everything that has gone wrong in Africa in terms of food security. And so tackling this challenge was of enormous significance not only to Ethiopia, but also to the image of the continent as a whole. Our objective, like President Kikwete was saying, is to transform small-scale agriculture, because that's where 80% of our people live. Improve productivity and shift the smallholder farming from subsistence to commercial farming. That requires infrastructure, including transport infrastructure, water management infrastructure, marketing infrastructure. It also requires effective extension service, inputs, improved seed varieties, and so on. It also involves some sort of safety net program because of variability of the weather condition. Farmers need to have some insurance that when things go wrong, they will be taken care of. On that basis, we have been, the target set by the African Union for Agricultural Development is about 10% of the budget should be allocated to agriculture. In Ethiopia, we allocate 16% of our budget to agriculture. That, of course, is limited because our budget as a whole is quite limited. But it shows the priority we have given to agriculture. And over the past 7 to 8 years, our agricultural growth has been above 6%. And we've been able to avoid emergency assistance even during drought season. The private sector plays a vital role in this exercise. I see two broad areas where the private sector can play a role. First, as President Yai was saying in the morning, 60% of unutilized arable land in the world is in Africa. And we have a significant share of that in Ethiopia. So we want the private sector to invest in agricultural production because we have unutilized arable land. Secondly, we want the private sector to assist the smallholder farmer in terms of providing cheap, good quality inputs, in terms of processing of agricultural products of the small-scale farmer, and in terms of marketing opportunities for the small-scale farmer. We're now working with a number of companies, including the World Food Program, which has been providing food assistance to Ethiopia for decades. Now they have partnered with us and PepsiCo to produce food supplement in Ethiopia for emergency programs elsewhere in the continent, and I think that's very ironic. We are also working with Diageo, a beer company from the United Kingdom, to produce the malt locally. Mm-hmm. So there is room for partnership between the private sector and the small-scale farmer. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Prime Minister Meles, we recognize that so many people have associated a mental image of hunger with Ethiopia, and at the same time, because of actions in the public sector and maintaining strong public investments in agriculture, you were able to protect millions of Ethiopians during the recent drought from needing food aid and food assistance. Could you speak to, even as we're launching a new alliance to engage the private sector, could you speak to some of the comments you've shared with us privately about how important it is that we live up to our commitments to invest in public investment in public institutions?
Ultimately, agricultural transformation in Africa is going to be a partnership between the smallholder farmer and the private sector. But the most important actor here is the smallholder farmer. That's 70% of the population.
security.
You are committing crimes against humanity.
70% of the population in Africa.
Excuse me, sir. We're in.
Where's the staff?
Can we have security help, please? Okay, thank you. We've heard from you, and we appreciate that.
70% of the population in Africa is smallholder farmers. So without transforming their livelihoods, there is no future for agriculture in Africa. So at this stage, the role of the private sector can only be to supplement the small-scale farmer. There is the issue of rural roads, water supply systems, irrigation infrastructure. All of these require public investment. Without public investment, even the private sector cannot do what it is supposed to do. So we need private sector investment, yes, and we need more of it. But we also need public investment. We in Africa are doing all we can. As I said, most of our countries are moving towards 10% of their budget invested in agriculture, but we need partnerships. This morning, the President was talking about the Lakila initiative with $22 billion of money promised. We want the money promised to be delivered, as the President was saying. And we need that for public investment in infrastructure. We also need the developed countries to do something about trade, because when you subsidize your farmers, our farmers who cannot be subsidized by our poor governments cannot compete. In the European Union, for example, every cow earns about $2 per day. Now, that's more than the average African farmer gets. And so if the subsidies were to be dealt with, we would have a better chance of trading our way out of poverty.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister.